go.
Welcome. What's your name?
Nancy Uzak.
Where are you from?
I'm from the Ironbound for over 40 years.
How did you get interested in environmental justice?
From living here, from talking to people, and from volunteering as a person working along with the Ironbound Community Corporation.
How were you involved with Riverbank Park? With the Riverbank Park.
Okay, how am I involved? Oh, how were we involved? Okay, in 1996, we found out that the city and the county of Newark were going to take away our Riverbank Park. And you remember that Ironbound has only 20 acres of recreational space, Independence Park and Riverbank Park, for over 50,000 people. So at that time, I was a mother of a 4-year-old daughter, and I said, we cannot have a neighborhood without a park. And other people in the community agreed with me, and we decided to fight and try to save Riverbank Park.
And how did that go?
And how did that go? Well, you can see that the park is still there. So in the end, we won. But if you know your Bible, it was sort of like David and Goliath. Everybody thought that we could not win. And it was a very hard fight that went all the way to the White House in the end. And in the end, of course, we won. But everyone in the community took part in that fight. It was not a single person. It was all kinds of people working together.
What do you know about the history of Riverbank Park throughout the years?
Okay, well, as you know, parks do not just appear from the sky, right? They are built by somebody. And we, in the course of fighting to save the park, we learned about the history of it. It is over 107 years old. It was formed by, there were several very famous people that were involved in the beginning of Riverbank Park. One of them was Frederick Law Olmsted. He was the designer of the park, and as you know, he's a world-famous park designer. He designed Central Park and all the other parks. Another very important person was Mr. Franklin Murphy, and your school is very close to the Murphy Varnish Factory, which he owned. And he wanted to have a place where his workers could relax at lunchtime. And he was a visionary. He had an imagination. He could see that the park could be built right along the river and it would be wonderful. At that time, or right before that time, there were only factories along the river. And when they went out of business, with Franklin Murphy pushing for it, they decided to take those factories down and build a park there. And that's how the park initially got started there.
Why did they want to tear down the park?
Okay, so in 1996, the county and the city decided that they were going to tear the park down to put a private baseball stadium there that you would have to pay to go to. So it would no longer be a place where people could play. It would be a place where people had to pay.
What did you do to save the park?
What did we do to save the park? We formed first we did everything you normally would do. We protested, we wrote letters, we did a lot of marching with signs, and we had huge public hearings where we got hundreds and hundreds of people to attend and say, don't take our park away. But the city and the county said, forget about it, we're doing it anyway. We're taking your park. So then we had to really get serious. We formed an organization, again, of volunteer people called Spark, Save the Park at Riverbank. And we began to figure out a strategy where we could save the park. And the first thing we did was a court case. Each of our strategies we lost, but we kept going and we had backup strategies so that when we lost the first thing, we had another one. The second one was a vote of all the people. We lost that. The third one was getting it declared a historic site, but they wouldn't do that until that happened after we won in the end. And the fourth thing was the National Park Service, which is supposed to provide a plan for giving, if they take a park away, to give back equal amount of land. The city and the county thought that they didn't have to obey the law. They didn't do that, and in the end, that's how we saved the park. They were told they had to go somewhere else to build their baseball stadium.
What was your role in this fight to save the park?
I had the best role of all, working with people like you guys to try to make it happen. And we had so many wonderful people that helped in so many ways, and even people who just helped us keep our spirits up when we had a rule that we could not all get discouraged at one time. So if somebody got discouraged, somebody else cheered us up and kept us going.
So can you tell us about the victory?
The victory was tremendous. And by the way, your school, Oliver Street, played a very important role because your principal, Mariana Golden, was a person who had grown up in Riverbank Park. And there is a collage of her, which I hope you find, that shows her at different ages. She made it herself, and she contributed it when we were fighting. And she contributed in many ways, but it showed her as a baby, it showed her when she was a young girl in the park. And Oliver Street also produced a play with us. At the end, when we won the fight, he wrote a play called Making Sparks Fly, and Oliver Street school students performed and made a stage set and did an entire play showing the fight about how we saved the park. And the community came and saw that play here on the stage in the auditorium. It was so exciting, it was so wonderful, and everybody was so happy.
What does this park mean to the community?
I think it means a lot. I mean, people have it in their hearts, and that is the reason why so many people got involved. Another very important person was David Schnagelberger, who had played baseball in that park when he was young. And he was an elderly gentleman, but he was so remembering his times in Riverbank Park, and it meant so much to him that he got very involved. And he was a union organizer when he was a worker. And so he knew how to help people keep going and organize. And so he was very important. There were people to whom the park meant a great deal. Another very important person was Lito Miranda, who heard about the park. I don't know if I have time to tell this story, but he worked nearby Riverbank Park, and he used to go there at lunchtime. And his children also played in the park. And at lunchtime one day he saw a camera crew, a TV crew, and he said, "Why are you out here?" And they said, "Look, there's your mayor." And he looked over and he saw Mayor Sharp James singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." And he walked up to the mayor and he said, "Why are you singing? What are you doing here?" And the mayor said, "Oh, we're taking your park away." And Lito said he got sick to his stomach. He could not finish his lunch. He walked back to the factory where he worked, sat down like you're sitting with his other workers, and he said, "We've got to do something to stop them taking our park." And his workers, his friends who were working there said, "There's nothing you can do. City Hall, you can't fight it. You can never win. Forget about it." But Lito looked around. He saw people passing out flyers one day, and he got involved. And his heart was so into that fight too. So a lot of people, but it wasn't just individuals. It was many, many people who helped with the fight. And the victory, I think, actually helped us, because when we won that fight, the politicians looked at us and said, hey, that's a community that really loves its parks, and P.S., we're going to build you a new park along the river. And the energy from that fight and how we convinced the politicians to save that park, that's how we got Riverfront Park, which is the new park that you know about now.
What activities do you have?
What activities in the park? Well, after the fight was won, we decided to keep some programming going in the park so that people could learn the story of the park, and we started 2 programs there. One is the community learning program that some of you have even been involved in, where we teach young people about the park and its history. And the other is the cultural arts, where we have festivals there. We have music and art day there in the spring. We have outdoor movie nights. We have scavenger hunts. We have all kinds of activities, pumpkin days. And those are all for the families to participate, but also to learn how we save the park, and that we have to carry on this story. We have a time capsule about the park, which in a certain year, which we haven't figured out yet, we will open that up again and see what's in there.
Did the park receive a historic
Designation. Yes, it did. After we won the fight, they finally decided to make it a historic, it is designated as a historical site. So if you go to Washington, D.C., and you look in the listing of National Historic Register sites, you will see Riverbank Park. And we're very happy about that. We're one of 2 parks in the city that have that designation.
What's the other part?
Branch Brook.
How did the community react to that?
Happily. Yeah, everyone's happy. We have not only the old park, we now have the new park. The old and the new, and we're working together to keep it all, because we have so many people in our community. We need that recreation space, and we need places for people to go.
What kind of environmental cleanup happened at the park?
So, in the middle of the fight to save the park, the county had dug into where the old smelting factory was and pulled out chemicals that had been buried way underground. And they pulled those out of the ground. They were not endangering anybody because they were covered with 8 feet of dirt, and they were heavy metals which do not move. But they used that as a way to try to stop us, to try to stop Spark from continuing. Just go away, your park is contaminated. So after we won, we worked with them and top science people from all of the major universities who knew us quite well. From all of our work with toxic waste cleanup, we knew all the top science guys. So we got the science guys and the DEP and us in a room, and they figured out how to remediate, and they capped the park with a cap of clean dirt and a fabric. So there's dirt over the entire park. The whole park got higher, and your feet don't have any contact with anything chemical.
So last question is, what does the park mean to you?
Well, to me, it stands for the resiliency, the resiliency and the power of the people to really make a change. And history is made by people. It's not just in books. History is not just in books. History is made by you and me. That's one of my favorite quotes. And I think that history was made at Riverbank Park. And it's a place, a historical place, but also a place that has a history of people caring for it. And it just shows the resolve of people in this community.
We would like to say thank you.
You're welcome.
And it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you guys for being interested. I'm looking forward to seeing all of the things you do about this. This is great.